Welcome into the Her.Unlocked Podcast. I'm so excited to have my friend Sam here. I call us
Hey.
fast friends.
The fastest.
For real. I shared a little bit about our story in the intro, and we giggle, right? Because there's a few of us who are like, we know each other's like deepest limiting beliefs and like all the insides. And then we're like, what's your phone number?
I don't think I have your phone number still. I really don't.
Exactly. That is literally how our friendship has been.
Yeah.
And so I'm just excited to share you with my community, have them hear your story, more about the incredible work that you do for moms and with moms by sharing not only your experience, but your expertise in something called matrescence, which I think a lot of my community is probably not familiar with. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm so grateful to be here, and I just am honored and always feel so lucky to be in your presence. So thank you for having me. And yes, I am a matrescence educator, which may have come up in the intro, but often that's met with a what, which is fair. Matrescence is actually the term for the transformative process that we go through as women when we become mothers and as we go throughout motherhood. So if you're a mom, when I say that, usually people are like, oh, that has a name. And if you're not a mom, it's like, what do you mean? But it really encompasses all of the changes that we go through on multiple domains. And motherhood really touches every area of our lives. And this is something that was like a medical anthropologist noted in the 1970s. And she was like, this is like, there's a trend. Every woman is going through this rapid transformation. A lot of us are struggling through it because it's not being recognized. Focus is shifting so quickly to baby, but something's happening with women. They're going through this rite of passage. And she continued studying it. It's been studied now very sparsely, unfortunately, but it has been continued to be studied. And now my role is to talk about it and share about it and give women the tools and resources to help navigate it.
yeah, I learned about matrescence through you, which I know you
Mm-hmm.
hear that pretty frequently because of how, like you just mentioned, uncommon it is
Mm-hmm.
for it to come up. So I'm super excited through our conversation today because I know you will sprinkle in some really
Yes.
incredible information and just understanding of how it can look different for all of
Mm-hmm.
us, right? That's something I know
Absolutely.
that you feel really passionate about of like, hey, it doesn't look the same for everyone. And I think that that's freeing as a mom because society tells us, right? Like,
Oh yeah.
here's this little box you fit in as a mom. And if you don't, there's something wrong with you. And you're like, no, no, no. Like, I want moms to
Mm-hmm.
feel like they can honor their experiences. Okay. So before we dive in more to that, I
Yes.
want you to share a little bit of who is Sam beyond, a matrescence educator. Who are you?
Oh man. I feel like I'm in a session with you right now. Who am I?
Deep, right?
It is, and it's so fun because we're talking about how timely this conversation is. Who I am today is so different than who I was when I met you, honestly. Like in the short, like 3 months, there's been just such an evolution. And who I was then is so different than who I was before I was a mom, which is ties into matrescence. And it's really fun when you have like a reflective practice and you have someone like yourself there to like, guide you through these things to look back and see all these different versions of yourself. And so that question is really fun for me, especially as as you guys are listening to this, I'm literally having contractions with my second. So I'm about to enter this new phase to enter matrescence again for the second time. So it's fun to like have this time capsule. Um, who I am today is I am a mom of a 3-year-old and about to have a 3-year-old boy named Teddy and about to have a baby girl. And I am, like I said, I'm a matrescence educator. I'm really passionate about motherhood, and I would consider myself to be an advocate of motherhood. I think motherhood needs to be put back on the table when it comes to all conversations regarding women and especially mothers. Often it's something that has to be hidden or something that we have to put what's the word? Like rose-colored glasses on. We have to sugarcoat everything when it comes to motherhood, but really it needs to place at the conversation in an honest place in order for us to have truly joyful and meaningful experiences. I created a journal and day planner that is specifically for moms to help them organize their day and their life and be intentional about their time, while at the same time reflecting and getting in tune with themselves and recording memories from their child's life and from their life. Because for the first 2 years of my son's life, I was just trying to put back the pieces, didn't know what matrescence was, and was like, just felt like I was broken and had to like busy, 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 go, 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 when really I just needed to slow down. And that's what this book is for. I have a wonderful husband who we both work from home, so we spend a lot of time together. And I am amazed that I still hate when he's gone for like an afternoon. And other than that, I love punk rock music, which I always feel like people are surprised to know. I like love emo, really sad music as I sit here in my pink room. And I love my family, my brothers and my parents. We spend a lot of time together when we can. And what else is there about me? You know me.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say there's been an evolution. It made me think of how you talked about punk rock, but, a little bit of before you landed in, the matrescence space, what kind of I know your own experience led you there, but I also know there were moments along the way that kind of affirmed this was going to be the direction. Because you started, like, you've done a lot of different things. As I've learned more about you, you've played in a lot of different places. So share a little bit of kind of that journey too, that's coming forward for you.
Yeah, I have. That's actually what I wrote in our daughter's baby book, of like something fun to know about me. It's like I've lived a lot of lives. I'm 33 and I've had a lot of lives already. I was a teacher right out of college, but I worked in fitness throughout college, and I also had eating disorders throughout college. So fitness and body image and all of those things were a really big um, area of interest to me. Pretty unhealthy, but not pretty, very unhealthy, but big interest for me. And after a year of teaching seventh grade, I was like, this is not for me. I love teaching. I love guiding. I love supporting. I don't love teaching kids, which I thought is kind of crazy because I love kids, but wasn't for me. So I went into fitness full time, got my master's in exercise science and sports nutrition, and I worked for Orange Theory Fitness for about 5 years as a head coach for them. And then the pandemic hit and everything closed down. And I kind of got the taste of what it was like to not wake up at 3:30 in the morning and be on call every day and have panic attacks because your phone rings at 3 a.m. and someone going like, I can't be there. And you're like, oh God, I just want to sleep. And all of the constant pressures of that. And I mean, it was a wonderful job when I had it, but I did get the taste of what it was like to not do that. And I also, at that time, we were trying to get pregnant with Teddy, and I was malnourished from competing and from my eating disorders for years leading up to that point. I was tired from work. I was stressed from work. And during the pandemic, I was able to relax and focus on my spirituality, focus on recovery, slow down, get on medication for my anxiety and depression, and got pregnant shortly thereafter in August of 2020. And I did some online coaching with fitness for a few years after that. But really, my entry into motherhood was so rough. My son had tongue, lip, and cheek ties, which we didn't know about. We didn't know about until he was about 2 months old. But then we didn't actually get we had a really horrible experience getting him diagnosed, which is unfortunately the case for most people in that position. There's just no treatment plan. But it really tainted my experience, and everything I thought I was going to be as a mom, everything I thought motherhood was going to be, every expectation I had set for myself, that I set for motherhood, all the things I had planned for during the pandemic, right? Like I didn't have anything to do. I was like, I was figuring this out. I was going to have this figured out when that baby got here. Like I knew what to do. Like, me? Come on, I got this. Nothing worked. Nothing worked. I always thought growing up, I would tell people I want to be a mom, not knowing that that doesn't pay anything in this society. But I was like, I just want to be a mom. And so imagine my complete disappointment in myself as a chronic high achiever of like, oh, and I suck at this. Cool. Like the one thing I thought I was meant to do, I'm not meant to do. Like, awesome. And so I started picking up more work, started just like doing more, trying to stay busy, trying to like be the super mom who can do it all, and feel like I wasn't going to lose myself in motherhood. I was like, if I just keep going, like I won't just be another mom. And then around when my son was like 18 months old, I've shared this on Instagram before, but I had like a full on meltdown where I looked back on his first year of life and I was like, oh my God, like I don't remember any of this. Wasn't present for any of this. I have got myself so far from like what I would ever want my motherhood to look like that I started to like kind of think, okay, well, maybe I have been placing my focus in the wrong places. Then I heard the term matrescence and I was like, oh, I'm not broken. Like, I'm not like this. I'm not losing myself. I'm becoming myself. Like, oh my God. And it was like, right. It was like this light bulb moment of like, oh, so society's been telling me this whole time I need to like go back to who I was, but she's not there anymore. Like she's not there.
That.
Right? There's pieces of her, but she's not there anymore. And so I started to do that research, like reached out to this certification course that was already in progress, but I was like, can I please join? I know I'm a month and a half late, but like I will catch up. And she let me in and I joined right away. And that's the Seasons of Matrescence that I'm certified in. And that's how I kind of got into this work. And then through that work, I started to kind of learn more about the sociology of motherhood. I started to be more of an observer of motherhood and like just how, for myself, and I don't know if like this ever feels like the case for you, like when we're taught so much that we should know how to do this, right? Like motherhood should be natural, it should be easy, that we like fall into this pattern of just like, well, I'll just like do what I do. And then you wake up one day and you're like, this is motherhood. This is what I have. This is what everybody promised me. And I saw that in so many people around me where I was like, I have this beautiful gift of having learned about matrescence and gone through this program. And I've been able to like design my motherhood where I know what matters to me. I know what I want it to look like, feel like, what success is like. And I have such a beautiful motherhood now. And that's where I've kind of placed a lot of my energy now is like, how do we extend that gift? Because I truly believe that motherhood, like you deserve to enjoy your motherhood. You deserve to look back on it and like, you know, say like, this is worth it. Like this was wonderful and beautiful. And yes, it had its hard moments and there's space for all of it. But I lived the motherhood that I wanted versus the motherhood I thought I was supposed to have or that I fell into. And there's so much there too. We talk about like postpartum depression rates, how those spike at 4 years postpartum because we don't put this intention in. And then you wake up 4 years later and you go, who am I? What is this life? So yeah, that's a long-winded answer to how I got here, but it's just been such a like not, I wouldn't say intentional journey, but like, you know how it is. It's like those breadcrumbs just kept coming and I'm not like where I want to be as far as like business wise or anything like that. But I feel so like aligned with the messaging and what I'm doing right now that it just is like, feels really good. And I have you to thank for a lot of that.
Well, you're the one showing up and doing the work, right? And what I was thinking about when you were sharing too, it's like our pain can a lot of times become our purpose. And I feel like for you, that was supposed to be your story. You know, it was like if you hadn't experienced that, would you be stepping into the matrescent space and being on the forefront of that and sharing with other moms if your experience had just been what you thought it quote unquote should have been, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would not be here, no. And I have a lot of gratitude for that experience now. I still wish it was different, but the other day my friend who's really struggling with, you would just be shocked, Brittany, because I have sent Brittany so many voice memos of being like, I'm so afraid to slow down. Like, I feel so good about what I'm doing. If I slow down, everything's going to fall away and I'm never going to get opportunities again. And that was around like 35, 36 weeks pregnant. And I have a friend who's around 35, 36 weeks pregnant. And right now she's like, if I don't do, like, I can't do everything that I want to do, but if I don't do it, I'm not going to get these opportunities again. And I'm like, whoa, okay. Yeah. So been there, done that. But the thing about it, I said to her is like, because she was thinking like maybe I just won't take a maternity leave because she's a content creator, so like she has that option to not take any time off. I said I didn't with my first, and I jumped right back into everything, and I would do anything to get that time back. And having that experience now, I was able to say that to her, and she was like, "Would you?" Like she told me the money that she might miss out on if she did take a maternity leave. She goes, would you pay that to get your time back? And I said, on the spot, like on the spot. So yeah, it was not what I wanted, but it definitely is giving me perspective and giving me the tools to, or the interest and opportunity to learn what I've learned, you know?
When you think about this postpartum, what are you looking forward to? What are you most nervous about? And what is like the number one thing you're going to do different?
I am most looking forward to the outlook I have on it. I think we'll see if it, like I said, I thought I knew what I was doing with Teddy. I don't, but this time I like just genuinely don't think I know what I'm doing, which is kind of nice. Like,
Yeah, it's a little freeing. You're like, well,
yeah, it's like, I know how to change a diaper now. I know how to like, I know more, but because of what I know, it's almost like I have so much less of a grip on it all. Like, I know that I have no control this time. And so like, it's like, I've told you and I've told a bunch of people, it's like my biggest concern now is not how to get her to sleep. It's what am I going to watch when she doesn't? Like, I just, it is what it is. And like that, having that mindset of being more flexible and like knowing this is our last baby and just being like, I know how temporary this is now. Like, I know how fast this actually goes. So having that perspective is something I'm really looking forward to. I'm most nervous about, I'm nervous about a lot. I'm nervous about how Teddy's going to handle it because we're really attached. We spend a lot of time together, but he's also the sweetest boy. So I think he's going to do better than I will with handling it. And I'm nervous about falling into old patterns of like, because I mean, even yesterday I had like 5 appointments and I was like, okay, baby can come now. And then last night I was like, okay, I just got to do this podcast with Brittany tomorrow and I got to go pick up some books from the distributor. And then I have an appointment and then baby can come. And I'm like, okay, you're falling into that pattern of like, just one more thing, just add one more thing. And like, I just put out a bunch of resources on my website, which are great, but like, there's other things I could do to them and add to them and projects I want to do. And I'm like, I have to release and just let it go. Or just like not make it, I don't know. I don't know what the word is. Like, just know that the timeline doesn't matter as much, right? Like, if it doesn't happen right this second, and if it happens 6 weeks from now, it's still going to happen. It's okay. But I'm really nervous that I'm going to get into those hormones, into that lull, and feel that urge to just like achieve and go and do and all the things that I know it's not the time for. And what's the number one thing I'm going to do different? Logistically, the number one thing I'm doing different is I am spending the first 2 weeks in my room and first week in bed. I'm just going to stay there, maybe go outside in that second week a little bit, but I'm going to stay as close. I think it's like the 5-5-5 rule. It's like 5 days in bed, 5 days near the bed, and then like 5 days near the room or something like that.
yeah.
I don't know specifically because see, I'm not following anything to the T. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, there you go. Freedom with no framework.
Yes, exactly. Yes, I'm just going to relax and allow for help in those early days and really take that time to rest and recover and heal. And our friend Nikki has hooked me up with all the postpartum supplements and all the things to help restore my body and rest when I can, versus feeling like I have to do it all in order to be seen as a mom. Like, I am secure in my identity. I'm secure in that I am a mom, and that this is what being a mom looks like for me right now, you know?
Yeah. And I always love that you say for me. Like whenever you're
Mhm.
talking about your experience, like I just feel like it leaves the door open for a lot of us to have our own experiences, approach motherhood in our own way, as long as it's in alignment to us, right? Like you talk a lot about
Yeah.
that. Um, let For the mom that's listening in, whether she's about to walk into postpartum, she's in postpartum. I think right postpartum lasts longer than we actually give, right? What is the
Mhm.
length again for considered postpartum?
I mean, it varies for everyone. I I think of postpartum as like, so you have your initial postpartum period, which would be like, your first 4 months, which is where your body's really healing from the birthing process. And then there's like the extended postpartum, which I would say could last up to like a year to 18 months to 2 years postpartum. And that's actually when we talk about matrescence too, matrescence is lifelong, right? We're always going to be new moms. Like, it's the hardest thing about motherhood is that we're always new moms. But postpartum is like kicking down the door to matrescence, right? It's like, oh, and hey, overnight, boom, welcome. And now let's go through this. And matrescence is the same thing. It's most prevalent around 2 to 5 years postpartum.
Yeah, I just love remind having women like understand that if they've never heard that before, because again, it's the
Mhm.
like bounce back like you were talking about, or it's focused on this, fourth trimester, which, is
Yeah.
so important, like you were talking about, because your body is healing and there's all these things, hormones are shifting, all the stuff is going on. And it's like, and it extends beyond that,
Yeah.
right? And
You're not
so
done.
exactly, for the mom that's in that season, right, within, walk going into postpartum, in the fourth trimester, or in kind of that 2 year frame, and she's struggling and she's kind of doing what you were talking about, like leaning into what society thinks, thinking she needs to bounce back or be the person she was supposed to or was,
Mhm.
or is the achiever and feels like I got to do all of the things. Like, what
Mhm.
advice would you give her?
Mm. Oh, first I'd have her take a deep breath, because I know that feeling of just feeling like suffocated by it. It's it is a suffocating feeling. But then what I would do is I actually have a program which should be, knock on wood, by half time before this baby comes. I have a program called Success in Your Season, which is something to help you to redefine what success looks like for the season that you're in, especially when it comes to motherhood. Because what often happens to us when we don't realign, when we don't reevaluate, when we don't allow ourselves to lean into where we are and to who we are becoming, we tend to cling to those old habits and those old patterns and those old behaviors and think that that's what's going to fix us. That's what's going to make me feel like myself again or bounce back. And it's like it's like trying to go up the opposite escalator, right? Like, you are fighting the trajectory of your life. And that's not, I would also tell her, that's not your fault. You are a product of a system and a society that we've been infiltrated by these ideas for forever, that this should be easy. You should bounce back. Like, are you feeling like yourself again? You're still you. Like, look at Kate Middleton in her, little dress 7 hours after giving birth, and look at Kim Kardashian running her 18th business after having her fourth child. Like, we're just told we're supposed to be able to do it all. The supermom is celebrated, all of these things. So it's not you. Take that, like, wherever you are in motherhood, your struggles often are not yours. They are
Mhm.
from society and what society has told you. And we've talked about this before, Brittany and I have, but we all have this perfect mother myth in our heads.
Yeah.
And this is something you can do right now. I think it's so powerful for every mom to sit down and tell me what a good mom does. Like, in your head, a good mom, go. And what you'll find is that the standard you're holding yourself to is really impossible. Because I could tell you a few, I won't go to all of them, but just a couple of conflicting things we
Yeah.
often tell ourselves is: a good mom is present with her kids all the time. She meets their needs when they need them, but she also provides for her family, and she also is there. And she also is a really good wife, and she's there for her husband when she needs it. But she has a lot of friends too, and she has a thriving social circle, and she takes care of herself, and she works out, and she eats well, and she probably drives a nice car, and she looks good all the time. Do you know anybody who can do all of those things all of the time? No, but we hold ourselves to these impossible standards.
Yeah.
So give yourself that grace, first off, that like, this isn't you. You are the product of all of these things. And then give yourself that grace to start to lean into where you are, and know that that is not as easy as it's been made out to be, and that it does take intention, but that it's super possible. It's super possible to say like, okay, like, to let go of that version of yourself, which is really, really hard to do, and step into the new one. So that, yeah, is that helpful? I
Yeah.
hope.
Super helpful. One, you gave her something to do right now, which I love. And two, we'll drop, if that is ready, that'll be in the show notes so you can grab it if it makes sense. I think at any point in motherhood, that resource is going to be incredible. There'll be a
Yeah.
handful of resources in the show notes, so definitely check it out. And what I love, because I stand for this too, being a success coach, is figuring out your version of success. And for you, you help moms do that in
Yeah.
motherhood. And it's similar to how I feel like you have to live the life that is in
Mm-hmm.
alignment to you. And I know part of that is values. And one of the things that you've shared with me is this about micro values. And so I think it'd be
Mm-hmm.
fun to kind of dive into values and micro values, maybe even share some of our own. But walk her through, like, I think we all know what values are, right? But I think
Mm-hmm.
what people don't often know about is micro values and just the evolution of your values, especially in motherhood as you go through the different seasons.
Yeah, absolutely. I will also add, I have a free resource too on matrescence. There's just like a workshop on matrescence that has some of these things too, to just acknowledge the changes that you've been through, that I think can be really helpful if you're not ready to like fully dig into this value stuff. So I'll make sure to give you that link too. But when it comes to values and macro values and micro values, I think this is probably the most life-changing work I've ever done. Because it put my life into very specific alignment. Because when we look at values, often we think of those big bucket items, right? Like, I value family, and I value creativity, and I value, if you even have these, I feel like I didn't I think if you would have
I know.
asked me, like, right, like if you would have asked me what are your values, I would be like, I don't know, I really like care about my family, and I care about like working out. Like, that's what I would have answered, versus like when you go through the intentional questions of like, what fills your life? How do you spend your time? Like, the things that really help you pinpoint, oh, these are the things that show up in my life frequently and that I really, really care about and I want to prioritize. Those are our macro values, right? Those big bucket items of, this is what gives my life joy. This is what gives my life fulfillment and purpose and meaning. However, the ways in which we show up and the ways in which we feel successful and feel fulfilled in those areas are going to be different for the season that we're in. And this all comes from the Seasons of Matrescence model by Nikki McCune, which she's phenomenal. So I would check that out. But our micro values help us to pinpoint for the season that we're in, or just, we use the seasonal model. Obviously, it's the Seasons of Matrescence, but for the season that we're in, what do those values look like? So a great example of this for me right now would be wellness. Wellness is a huge, huge value for me, always has been, always will be. In my like summer season, when I'm feeling good and I'm not 9 months pregnant and I'm out and about and I'm at my peak, like, my value of what wellness is still there. My micro values are lifting. I love to like lift and try to get stronger, eating nutritious foods, being like active every day, and doing like mindset work every day. Those are things that like lift 2 to 3 times a week. Like, those are very specific things. In this season and in the upcoming season, my value of wellness is still there. My micro value is journaling every day and moving my body in some way. Full stop. That's it. Like, if I can do those 2 things, I feel good. I feel successful. If I were to right now be holding myself to Summer Sam's micro values, I would feel like a failure every day. I would feel like I'm struggling. I would feel like I can't do it. I can't show up. What's wrong with me? Why can't I do this? I've always been able to, Brittany. Like, I've always been able to do this, but
Yep.
I'm not there and I'm not that person. And so being able to reevaluate when we go through changes, when we go through seasons, when we feel like, okay, the things that I once liked and did and was able to do easy aren't coming as easy to me right now. Or I just don't feel in alignment with that anymore. When we can work through these like micro values, it can be absolutely game changing. And not even when we just go through changes, but really at any time, it can help us to like make those decisions. It's like to set goals that actually make sense for us, to set boundaries that make sense for us with
Yes.
clarity. Like right now, connection is one of my macro values, and the way that looks is in my summers it's networking, it's meeting out with my friends, it's like date nights with my husband, it's social media. Right now, I just yesterday was like, I can't come to our networking event because I do not feel up to it. I don't feel like my gut's telling me not to go, and I set that boundary. I didn't go. I didn't feel guilt about it because that's not my micro value right now. For social is reaching out to friends, and social media, and like just staying connected. Actually, one of my big ones right now is staying connected with the people I'm connected to. Like, I'm not
Mhm.
trying to make new connections right now.
Yeah.
I'm open to them, but like not happening. And this one networking event, is that really what I need right now? Probably not. So yeah,
Oh my
I have
gosh.
that. Did I answer your question?
Yes, because I just wanted to give her an idea of like, what can this look and feel like, and why are we talking about this idea that things change in a season? And I think your specific examples of where you are now and then Summer Sam, which I love, what would be different? Like, again, showing that these macro values, for the most part, stay pretty consistent. What I
Yeah.
would probably go out on a short limb and say is that you listening in may not have, because I know I hadn't. Like I said, I knew my values, and I'd done, like in corporate America, you do these exercises and like you do them really quick, and you do the, like you said, the generic ones that you feel like you should value, right? Like for me, it
Right.
was a lot of should. I should value
Yes.
these things,
Yes.
versus like, what do I actually value? And
Mhm.
then the micro piece is so powerful because it gets way more specific on how you live that value out every day, because it isn't
Yeah.
about, it's kind of how I feel about intentions. They're beautiful and they're
Right.
important to set. And what are the aligned actions? What are the things you're doing to move towards those intentions? Just like, what
Yeah.
are the aligned actions and the micro values that help you do this bigger value every single day, right? And that's what
Yeah.
you demonstrated for her. And I think we're all going to leave challenged to think about, one, do I know my values? And then in
Right.
this season, using Sam's resources, what are my micro values to really
Mhm.
create that version of motherhood you're talking about, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And in the Success in Your Seasons program, that's how we end it, is we go through and establish macro values, micro values, value statements, which I think are the most powerful things, to like write it out. And then like putting it into your daily routine. What does that look like in your schedule? What does that look like in your self-care? What does that look like in how do we actually put those values into your life? And what do we need to take away to make that a reality? And just one more tool I'll give you guys right now, like if you do one thing when you leave this, as we're talking about motherhood, I would love for you to sit down and work on one little value on motherhood and just write, success in this season of motherhood looks like, and when I look back on this season of motherhood, I want to be able to say, and write that out. It's going to give you so much clarity just right there, and then we can dig into it more in the program. But like that prompt, like if there's a mom like that mom I was talking about who's struggling, first thing I'll say is like, okay, when you look back on this, what would you be able to say, I feel successful? Because a lot of the times it's not what we're doing. It's what we think we should do, like you said.
All the shoulds, shoulding all over ourselves and the have tos. And yes, there are things that are required of us that we don't always
Mhm.
love, right? Like that's just life. And a lot of things we have control over and we have the ability to do
Yeah.
differently, think differently, show up differently. It's just a lot of us are on autopilot. I know that that's where I was in the first part of my motherhood, just like on autopilot in life, not ever pausing because it's so full, right? Like it is so freaking full. And it's like
Yeah.
you talked about this earlier, but feeling overwhelmed and underwater. And it's like I talk about the power of the pause. Like it is
Yes.
so important to just take a pause, take a time out to do what you're talking about, because I know there are so many moms out there that are feeling like the mom you were talking about, that have felt like we have before we did a lot of this inner work, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
motherhood requires us to do a lot of inner work. Like you don't have a choice. I mean, if you want to, I don't know if I love the word thrive. Like I know people talk about like survive to thrive, but it's just like to live out your version of motherhood. In order to do that, it
Mm-hmm.
requires a whole lot of inner work. It requires a whole lot of healing, right? It requires this work. And yes, it's work and it's an investment and it creates more fulfillment, right? Like, which is what
Yeah.
I know you're experiencing firsthand.
What makes me so frustrated about that, and we may have talked about this, but is that in the society that we live in, and I talk about society a lot because I study the sociology of motherhood.
Yes.
So I'm very like, I feel like it's like a buzzword for me, but really in the society that we live in, again, motherhood's supposed to come easy and supposed to come natural. And so
Mm.
the things that we could do to make ourselves really outstanding moms in our own version of motherhood, we feel like we shouldn't have to do the inner work, the intentionality, the self-growth, the self-care, the coaching, the matrescence workshops. It all feels frivolous and it all feels like, well, I shouldn't need that because I should know how to do this, when none of us know how to do this. None of us have parented your specific child before. None of us have lived your version of motherhood before. I can't tell you how to do it. I can't tell you what it should look like, but yet we think that we should know, we shouldn't have to do these things. And it's such a disservice to moms to say like, yeah, like you're a good mom, but like, are you? Because you don't know how to do these things, but you should know how to. But don't you dare try to work on yourself because you shouldn't have to. And it's just, ooh, it just grinds my gears.
Well, and it's just like you think of like it makes me think of like our bodies as moms, right? Like breastfeeding is an example that comes forward to me when you talk about like it should be natural, it should just be easy, we should, and then there's so much shame. And I talk from personal experience. I struggled with both kids with breastfeeding. Like it was not natural.
Yep.
It And I had so much shame and guilt around it. Even the second time
Mm-hmm.
around when I would told myself, I was like, if
Yeah.
this isn't going to work, I am not going to push it. I'm not going to create stress around me and my baby. And here I am doing syringes and all the things to get my baby's weight
Mm-hmm.
up again, doing all the like, try to get surplus. Like, and again, for some people and for some motherhood, like that is what they want to do.
Right.
I had told myself, like, that is not actually what you want to do. And yet I still fell trapped to, I'm going to figure this out because I'm a mom and I'm made to do this. And it's like,
Right.
all our bodies are different. Every single kiddo's different. They come out different, just like you talked about Teddy and all the
Mm-hmm.
ties he had. Like, but it gets me amped up too because it's so easy in motherhood to fall trapped to that I should know how to do this. My body should know how to do this. My baby who just came out of
Yes.
your body should somehow not like, because you see those videos where they like wiggle up to the breast, like, and some people that
Yes.
is true, but that's not. But like, you're just thinking every baby will just wiggle up to the breast. I've never thought I'd say breast so much on my podcast, but it's like,
No, it's so true though. And I remember specifically, like, I don't know, it was like the first week of postpartum, first week of motherhood, where I was like, oh, he's never done this before. Like, I don't know why. I was just like, you're a baby. Like, you know how to baby, sleep, eat. Come on, you know how to do this. He's never done this before. But I didn't have the grace to say the same thing to myself,
yeah,
which you have never done this before. And guess what? You have never been a mom on this day with this child ever before. Every day we are new moms and it's overwhelming as a hell. But that's where we have those values and things to like lean back on when, you know, stuff starts hitting the fan, as it inevitably does. But yeah, it's that the idea that we should know how to do this, they should know how to do this, our partners should know how to do this. It's like such a trap, such a trap.
Well, and it makes you fall trap. I talk a lot about limiting beliefs in the stories we tell
Oh
ourselves.
yeah.
And there are so many stories that we tell ourselves about motherhood. And one I'm working on right now because it's something that came forward with like, I have this deep rooted limiting belief around earning my worth in all
Mhm.
areas of my life, and that everything has to be hard. That
Yeah.
marriage has to be hard, that motherhood has to be hard, that growing my business has to be hard, that my health journey has to be hard. Those are 4 areas where like I have somehow just developed this story that it has to be hard. It can't be
Wow.
fun. I'm not good at
Mhm.
it. Like I have said about my motherhood, that the story I've told myself is like, some days I feel like I wasn't made to be a mom. I've always wanted to be a mom. And part
Mhm.
of that was like just society pressures and also my own internal operating system that just
Right.
decided that motherhood was going to be hard for me. And so I'm
Mm.
working on that story and rewriting, because we can, because subconscious
Right.
reprogramming and all the work that you
Yes.
also support people on, and even just like I'm doing nervous system regulation. But it's just like rewriting those beliefs, because I think there's a lot of women moms listening in that have a certain belief around themselves and motherhood, and I want to tell you, you don't have to carry that if you don't want
Mhm.
to. If you're like, this is working for me and this is like cool, but if
Mhm.
you're like, I want to change the narrative, you
Mhm.
can. There are tools to
Yeah.
support you. There's stuff Sam has, there's stuff I have, and I'm walking it myself. Like there's been a lot of work I've done, but I have noticed that I'm still carrying this story that motherhood has to be hard for me. It can be easy for everyone else, but
Mhm.
hard for me.
Right. That's so fascinating. And I think super relatable though, especially now where it's so fascinating to me how we've come to this point on social media where, it was don't glorify motherhood, don't like, we're everybody was highlight reel, blah, blah, blah. And then it like the tide shifted to like, and now let's just like crap all over motherhood all of the time. And like motherhood's the worst and it's so hard. And like your kids are monsters. It's like, how did we get here? Like, there is most of us are living in this in between, and the in between is the hardest. The in between is the hardest to reconcile because how could I possibly feel like I want to like absolutely never see my child again and love them unconditionally? Like that it's called maternal ambivalence, and it's like when you really look at all of the things in motherhood, it's like I love being a mom and I miss my life before sometimes, fully normal feeling to have. But the shame and guilt that you're talking about is so pervasive. And again, we've just like we're tossed between these extremes of like, oh, motherhood's the worst and it's so hard and it's like the hardest thing you'll ever do. And like, oh, but motherhood's beautiful and wonderful. And if you don't enjoy it, then you're not grateful. And how dare you say a bad word about motherhood? And it is so wild when we're all in the middle. And I can imagine that when you have that mindset already of like, well, this is hard. And it is hard. It
Yeah,
is hard. But like, that's reaffirming that belief too of like,
exactly. Then it's
right?
right, like because I talk a ton about in my space, it's like where your focus goes, your
Yeah.
energy flows, right? And so if I am saying to myself that motherhood is hard all the time, it's just going to be harder. Versus like it's
Yeah.
still going to be hard, just like I talk about like limiting beliefs. We're going to work on them and we're going to replace them, but they're not going to disappear forever. They will come
Right.
forward. You're just going to be able to navigate them more productively, which is how I feel about all aspects. And when I think about my version of motherhood, it's like I just want to move through some of these moments more productively versus
Yeah.
throwing the towel in and just being like, this is too hard and I'm overwhelmed. And like, there will still be moments like that. It's not like we're,
Yes.
I'm trying to be immune to that or anyone be immune to that. It's just like we can change and shift to a more empowering narrative around motherhood, which is why I love what you put out, because you do show all sides of it. And you do
Yeah.
show, hey, like I feel this way, and you're
Hmm.
giving women tools to work through this stuff more productively because it's going to be there, right? Like you said,
Yeah.
motherhood is hard. It's not like I'm saying it isn't. It's more like, what do you want your thought pattern and narrative to be?
Right. And the perspective you want to have on it. And I'll just say a plug for you right now because I have to is like you're saying with those limiting beliefs, like that we can quiet them. And I feel like there is such purpose. I feel like once you're aware of them, the challenges that do come up around them become like exercise. It's like, oh, versus a like someone like this is the only analogy I have, like someone like kicking you behind the knees, making you like drop to your knees when it happens. Instead, it's like, oh, I'm gonna dodge that. I saw that. I know what that feels like. I that hurt, but I'm not gonna drop to my knees. And one of the ones that we've worked on a lot is my like external validation. Enneagram 3, high achiever, like not high achiever that I've achieved a lot, but I always want to, and I feel like I'm supposed to. And so external validation has always been my thing of like, this is how you succeed. And I have the belief that everybody hates me. So those two things don't really go hand in hand. But lately, I've noticed that when it comes to old sources of external validation, it's become more of a neutral thing where like it still bothers me from time to time. Like, oh, like I had an experience this morning where someone gave me feedback on something in a way that I wouldn't necessarily have given feedback myself. And I was like, well, that was annoying, but it wasn't like delete the thing I made, like, take it down, burn it, like it would have been in the past. And so if you've ever like heard what Brittany's talking about, and you're like, yeah, but really, will that work for me? I am like the most like, yeah, but I'm the worst. It's not going to work for me kind of person. So don't worry, it works, and it's really, the way that it works, like I said, is not like you said, it's not going to go away, but it really becomes then just like an awareness and I don't know, you build your like tolerance to it in a way of like, yeah, oh, I see that thing. Yeah, I see that thing, and I can see how that would make me feel the way that I'm feeling right now. But I don't have to feel this way, and I'm not going to, and I'm going to move past it. Versus again, like, oh, this happened, and when this happens, I always feel, and then I do, and that pattern that we slip into, because we all have them. It's really like life-changing stuff.
Wow. I so appreciate you sharing your experience, because I want more women to realize like it is possible to shift your beliefs. It is absolutely possible to change your identity, which I know sounds like heavy. And I know you're talking, I mean, our identity changes when we walk into motherhood, and it's just like, how do I reconcile that? What beliefs am I bringing with me? What beliefs? Because also those beliefs transfer into our kids. Because here's the thing, and I know can be a little alarming when you've got kids in this age range, because it feels this way to me, but so much of our belief system was imprinted between the ages of 0 and 7. And
Yeah.
so just being aware of your own belief systems and how that might be showing up for your kids. Again, not for you to go like feel so, because it can be overwhelming when you think about that. And what's
Yeah.
beautiful is if you do this work, then you can support your kids in doing the work, and you can do some things differently, talk about some things differently, because your belief system does impact them. And so just being aware of that. It's the same with all the work you're talking about with motherhood. Like, how you decide to define success in motherhood, it clearly impacts your kids. Like,
100%.
and when you're doing the shoulds, like you were talking about, and like following this path that's not for you, it is impacting your kids, because you're not showing up the version you want to. You're showing up. I mean, I know what I was like, just hair on fire.
Right. Yeah. And you know what's interesting? I think this is, like you said, like you can change your identity. I think the thing is, your identity is going to change whether you're a party to it or not. So
1000%.
why
I love
wouldn't you
that.
want to be constructive in it? When we talk about matrescence, again, it's a rite of passage. You are going from one phase of life to another. That's happening whether we're facilitating it or not. But if we facilitate it, it can be beautiful and empowering. But instead, what it ends up happening is it's not facilitated, it's not talked about, it's not acknowledged, and instead we feel broken, disoriented, and like failures for having changed when you were meant to change. You're going to keep changing. Our identities are going to keep changing throughout all of the transitions of life. And like you said, like, why wouldn't you want to be a part of that, versus letting it happen to you?
Yeah. And that's where you feel that friction, because you're not being an active member of your life.
Yeah.
And that's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
that's the autopilot, right? And I say that from a place of, my life was good. And looking from the outside in, looked good. And yet I was just on autopilot doing what I should do, following the different paths that I should follow, thinking that was
Mhm.
going to lead me to success in all areas of my life. And I was just being such a passive member of my life. Like, you know,
Yeah.
people talk about the hamster wheel, and we're like, well, this is just it. And one of the things that just really gets me on a soapbox about motherhood is this idea, especially with young kids, that like, this is just how it is. This
Mm.
is just how it is. Like, just power through, and it's like, like I appreciate it because it's like they're just trying, like people who say that are just trying to like make you feel better. And then you're like,
Mhm.
but then it just adds to me staying in
Yeah.
this spot.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be that way. Like, right?
No.
Like,
No.
just like
And we all
you're
have our
changing it, you know?
Yeah, and we all have our own privileges, right? Like for it's easy for me to say like I like my husband supports our family primarily, and like I'm so grateful for that, and I'm able to spend the time that I want with Teddy that I can. But within our own realities, there are still ways we can improve and make our lives better that I think we don't give enough credit to. It can be really really easy. Like even like using pregnancy as an example. Right now, I can't work out. Like I just physically can't. It's not what's made for my pelvic floor right now. So, but that doesn't mean I can't do anything. And I could sit there and be like, I can't work out, so I'm just gonna lay down all day. Like I could walk, I could do those things. And that's, is it what I want to do? No. But is it moving the needle in any way? Probably not. But like there's always a little something you can do. And it's just that, it's a classic black and white mindset. But that feeling of like, oh, it's just the way it is, it's just the way I've always been. Like so easy to fall into that. And like as I'm sure you've talked about plenty of times, like our brains want to do that, right? It's like,
Oh yeah,
I
keep
don't
us
want to
safe.
have to change my thing. This is so much easier. Like the devil, but like within the confines of our reality, like there are things that we can do. And I think owning that power and just like starting to come to terms with that, like, okay, I don't have to be like a victim to life. I don't have to be a victim to motherhood, which I feel like so many of us are by
1,000%.
society. Like I can do this and I can make this better for me. But it is going to take effort. And that's the hard part.
Yeah. It's like choose your hard. I know people kind of share that statement, and it's like it's hard to stay and it's hard to change and it's hard to step out of being a victim of motherhood, because again, I'm speaking from a place of like I was and have been a victim of motherhood,
Mhm.
and I just like I am so excited for the mom listening in to just hopefully leave feeling empowered that if she wants to change the narrative,
Mhm.
not everyone does, right? Like you have to want it, you have to decide to take. I talk about
Yeah.
radical responsibility over your life, which is what you're talking about, and living at cause, not at effect of your life of motherhood,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yep.
a lot of us are living at effect of motherhood. You know, depending on what our
Mhm.
circumstances are, it can feel like this is happening to me, right? Depending on what's
Right.
going on with your kids or your circumstances. And to your point, everyone has different privileges, everyone has different circumstances. And one of the questions I always give my clients is, given the what you can't control, what can you do next? What do you want to
Yeah.
do next? What's within your control in the context and circumstances you're in, which is exactly what you're talking about. And that applies for
Mhm.
motherhood too. It's like, okay, like I can't control how my kid's showing up. I can't
Right.
control how how my husband's being, or what's happening at daycare, or what's happening with my in-laws, or whatever the circumstances are with my kids and my motherhood.
Mhm.
And it's like, okay,
Mhm.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
you can do something. You just have to decide, you have to do the work, like you said, and lean in. And again, that's where the power of the pause comes in, of just like,
Mhm.
okay, time out, like what do I want to do?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I feel like that gets easier over time too. Like once you do it once you do this work one time, it gets easier to just be like right now with heading into postpartum, I haven't taken the time to like really sit down. I am going to. It's on my to-do list today actually, is to sit down and like rewrite my micro values and then like some micro goals for postpartum. What's it going to make me on those days where I feel like I need to do all of the things? What are like the 3 things I can do that I can look back and be like, put in my journal and say that was a success? Once you do that work the one time, you don't need to do it as intensely every time. It becomes oh, I know this feeling. I'm out of alignment. I know this feeling. I'm not where I need to be. I need to readjust some things. I need to reevaluate. And then you can jump right back into it. It's just that initial like digging in that can be really hard.
Yeah, it's like you were talking about, dodging and getting kicked, from behind. It's like
Yeah.
you are able to dodge more quickly, more easily with little less effort, like you're talking about, because you flex the muscle. I mean, it's just like when you work out, right? Like it's freaking hard to get back in the gym the first time. And it's a lot
Yes.
of work and your body's not ready for it. And then over time it becomes easier and easier, right? And that's what you're talking about with motherhood
Yep.
and this work. It's like, okay,
Yep.
put in the reps. That's like anything in life, right? Put in the reps and things do get easier over time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Anything else that you want to leave the mom listening in with today? And then I want her to know where she can she find you? What else can she expect from you?
I think we covered a lot of it, and I will go back to what I said. Like, if you feel like you're struggling, if you feel like you're not where you want to be in motherhood, that's not your fault. Like we are all subject to this system and society that we've grown up in, and we've had this for all of our lives. And you've been one person for all of your life, and you're becoming someone new, and that's no easy feat. And so, just I hope that you can honor yourself today in that, and know that your version of motherhood is worthy and beautiful, and it's going to look different from mine. It's going to look different from Brittany's, and that is just fine. So that's the little pep talk I would like to leave you with today. If you want to connect with me, I'll give Brittany knows both my handles, but Instagram's always the best place. I love just talking with moms in my DMs, and I also do collaborative reels with moms. So I don't care if you have 2 followers or 2 million followers. Like, I love to put together reels featuring moms living various versions of motherhood so that we can honor the vast experience that is motherhood and bring moms together instead of pitting us against each other. So if you're interested in that, all of that is on Instagram, all the links on my website. I think that's probably the best way to just get into my Instagram and then follow the trails.
I love that. Sam is so fun to follow on Instagram, honestly. Like you're going to
I
get
love it.
humor, education, like all the things mixed in there and you love it and you can tell. So definitely follow her and then I will drop in the show notes how to get connected and a lot of the resources we talked about. Sam is you're also doing a mini, like you have a podcast. So tell them about your podcast and then the mini series you're doing. Cause I feel
Yeah.
like she's going to want to go over there and subscribe and listen in.
Yeah. So I have a podcast with my long lost best friend Emmy. It's called Becoming Mama. We're on our summer break right now, but if you're interested in all things motherhood, you can check that out. And then I have a mini series called Welcome Again Mama. My brand is called Welcome Mama, and I have my Welcome Mama journal and day planner. And in this series, I'm just doing very off the cuff, raw, real updates throughout postpartum on a weekly basis, or as weekly as I can do them. I don't think I would have one for next week, Brittany, and I think you'd be so proud of me to know that I'm not going to force it. If I don't have one next week, I don't have one next week. I know, who is she? But I'm going to be doing that throughout my postpartum in those initial days because I really struggled feeling alone and like I couldn't speak what was truly happening in motherhood in those postpartum days. And I feel like a lot of us, I've had a lot of people actually reach out and be like, that feeling you said of like just wanting to be asked, are you okay? Like I felt that. And that's what this is. So this is my space to chronicle my experience because it's my last baby and I want to remember it, and to just speak openly and honestly and connect with people throughout that kind of isolating period. So that's, I'll give you those links too.
I love that. And I love to close out my episodes with others by asking you, because I also know gratitude is a important part of your life. It's a part of the journal. I'm going to talk about my own experience with your journal in a moment, but I want to know, what is one thing you are deeply grateful for right now?
Mm. I am deeply grateful for the last 3 years of motherhood. I've been reflecting on it a lot lately. I'm going to cry now, but I am so, so grateful for the time I had with Teddy, just he and I. And I'm so grateful for who he has helped me to become and um, the life that we've built together. And I'm so excited to see him be a big brother. But I'm just so grateful for the past 3 years. Like, yes, like I said before, would have wanted it so different, but it's really become the most beautiful experience. And yeah, I'm really grateful for it.
Oh, I love that. It's such a perfect way to
Yeah.
wrap up this episode. And I'm just so grateful for you, your friendship. I know we giggled about being fast friends. It's just, we've talked about that. And I'm going to do an episode coming up about, the fear of not being liked. And there's just a common thread with a lot of women, and it can feel hard to show up vulnerably in relationships, especially when we don't have a lot of time to connect. And I'm just so grateful that that we've both chosen to show up really vulnerable in our relationships and gotten to support each other in all aspects of life and business. And yeah, like
Mhm.
there are no coincidences. And I'm so excited for what's to come and the impact that I know you're going to make. And there's going to be some fun collabs coming with us because, as you can tell, our worlds collide. I'll be really excited to share some of that when the time is right. But it's only the beginning.
I know. And I echo everything you just said. I'm so grateful for you and your friendship. And um, yeah, like I was I was talking to Nikki about this the other day. Like, I truly don't know what life would look like right now if I hadn't met y'all, like, just in March. Like,
I
was that
know.
really just March? Like,
Just
what
March.
the
For
hell?
real, just March. Especially me. I can't remember. I don't even remember how you and Nikki met. And I mentioned Nikki in the intro since that's how we got connected. But yeah.
Maybe February. Maybe we first connected like on Instagram in February. But like, you guys have changed the way that I believe in myself and I believe in my mission. Uh, like, wholeheartedly. Like, I have no doubts that in what I'm meant to do and what I'm doing, and I would not be here without you guys. So I just love you so much, and I'm so excited for everything that's coming for you. And oh, I'm so excited. Yeah.
All right, friend. Thank you again. And I'll talk to the rest of you next week.